Acts chapter 20. We're going to read verse 7 down to verse 12. I'm going to preach from this text with this thought in mind: refocusing a generation. Refocusing a generation. Focus can be defined as a center of activity, attraction, or attention. Directed emphasis. It is not a matter of whether or not our young people are focused. The question is, what are they focused on? To refocus means to change the emphasis and direction of. It is the goal of our conference, the goal of our message today, to change the emphasis and the direction of our young people who are focused on the wrong thing. Today we read a story about a young man whose focus was on the wrong thing. We learn in verse 9 that this young man's name was Eutychus. The first thing we see about Eutychus in our story is that Eutychus was in a promising environment. Verse 7 says, "Now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul." This environment is promising because he's around the right people. The text says that Eutychus was around the disciples. The people of God in the place of God is the blessed place that a young person can be. As a matter of fact, a lot of us know that when you hang around the wrong people, the adverse impact it could have on your choices and on your consequences. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, "Do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good morals." In other words, despite your intentions, when you're involved with idiots, you'll be influenced to be idiotic. Despite your intentions, when you're involved with idiots, you'll be influenced to be idiotic. Is there anybody in the house that can testify, Reverend, I know what you're talking about? Because I done had some idiots in my life give me some bad advice, and when I took their advice, I ended up looking like a fool on the back end. How many people can testify the people in your life will make or break you? Matter of fact, today I want you to take an assessment of all the people that you converse with, all of your associates, all of your acquaintances, all of your friends. Go through your iPad, your iPhone, your Rolodex, your BlackBerry, your Facebook friends, whoever following you on Twitter. You need to look and identify all the idiots. Today is Idiot Identification Day. You need to remove the idiots from your life, because when idiots influence you, you'll end up being idiotic on the back end. He's around the right people. The text says he's in the right place. Fellowship with the saints is the right place to be. Most parents bring their children to church because it's a promising environment for their children to grow up the correct way. Wherever the Spirit of God is and the people of God are is the right place to be. But the problem with a lot of us is we go places where we know the Spirit is not there. Talking about, I'm going to take the Spirit with me. God, I'm going to take you with me to this club. God, they need you in this strip club, Lord. I'm taking the Spirit with me. He's around the right people, he's in the right place, and he's there for the right purpose. When you come to this place with these people, the purpose is praise. How many people know that I didn't come to church to see what you got on? I didn't come to church to hear the latest gossip. I didn't come to church to be talked about or to be really talked to. I came to church to praise and worship God. After all he done brought me through this week, that he done seen me through the last if you knew what I went through the last 7 days, you'll be praising God with me. If you knew what it took for me to get here, you know that the purpose I'm here is to give God praise. He's around the right people, he's in the right place, he's there for the right purpose, and he's listening to the right preacher. Of all the preachers Eutychus could hear preach in person, he gets to hear Paul. Paul, who is responsible for laying the foundation of spreading the gospel to all the world. He's hearing Paul preach. The question must be posed to Eutychus. If you're in the right place, around the right people, with the right purpose, listening to the right preacher, how are you still disconnected? The truth of the matter is, a lot of people can be raised in church, but you will leave the church and forget what you learned in the church. But I'm so glad for the things my grandmama put in me. I'm so glad for the things my Sunday school teacher put in me, because when I got big enough to do my own thing and I left, it was something in me that just drug me back to God. The Bible says if you train up a child in the way that he should go, when he's old, he won't depart from it. I know I got somebody in this house that can testify you ran from God, but God pulled you back. You ought to give God praise for what they put in you, because what's in you brought you back to God. A tree nursery. A tree nursery is a place where they grow little baby trees. The tree nursery is a conducive environment for trees to grow. The problem is the little trees can't stay in the tree nursery forever. One day the little tree is going to be dug out of the tree nursery and they're going to be moved to a new location that they never experienced. They're going to be planted in new soil that they've never been around. They're going to be exposed to elements they've never been exposed to. And the reality is, oftentimes when we move our baby trees from our controlled environments to uncontrolled environments, they can't stand the wind and the waves of this world. But what I thank God for is the people who plant the trees, they are smart enough to tie a 2x4 next to the tree, because they know that this little tree can't handle that wind on its own. So I got to put another piece of wood next to it so when the wind starts blowing, the tree will still stand up. That's why I thank God for brothers in Christ. So when the winds in my life start blowing, they can hold me up. You ought to give God praise for the 2x4s in your life. You know, if it had not been for somebody else, you would have fell a long time ago. Stop talking about our young people. Come alongside them and help them stand. The text says he's in a promising environment. But in this promising environment, he has a prototypical experience. The word prototype simply means an individual that exhibits the essential features of a later type, a standard or typical example. In other words, Eutychus is a prototype of what most youth feel in church. His experience is typical of the example of what average teenagers' perspective is of church. Look at his example, verse 7. Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them, continued his message until midnight. There were many lamps in the upper room where they were gathered together, and in a window sat a certain young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep. Eutychus was uninterested in the preaching. He was in the right place, around the right people, heard the right preacher, but he was uninterested. He was disinterested in the preaching. Eutychus was not interested in what was going on around him. There are three key aspects when you're trying to send a message. There's the messenger, there's the message, and there's the receiver. The problem is, oftentimes the messenger will send the message, but it won't be received. So you'll blame it on the audience because they didn't receive your message, but it's incumbent upon the messenger to tailor the message for the receiver to understand. In other words, you from the 60s, all you talk about is the 70s, and you trying to figure out why a teenager in 2011 can't connect with you. Could it be that you, messenger, need to change your message so that they can receive it and understand it? He was not interested. He was not trying to hear it. We have to tailor the gospel so that it is attractive to young people to draw them to Christ. Not only was he not interested in the preaching, he was uncomfortable in the place. Think about it, y'all. Paul started preaching, and he preached till midnight. Oh, Lord. Y'all don't want that spirit to fall on me. They didn't have a clock in that church. Paul just preached and kept on preaching and kept on preaching. And I know Eutychus was thinking, bro, look, I came to church, but not for this long. Not only was Paul preaching all night, but it was hot. Verse 6 says it was Passover, which means it's springtime. It's many lamps burning. They're in an upper room. Heat rises, and he's around a whole bunch of church folk. They was in a good old Baptist church with their funeral home fans. Jerusalem mortuary. If you drop, we got you. He was uncomfortable in this place. How do we know that he was not attached? How do we know he was uncomfortable? Because he moved himself to an uncommitted position. He moved from amongst the saints to sit on a window. I don't care where you are in your life. I don't care how uncomfortable you are, but you can't move out of his will to the window sill. Oftentimes, because we're uncomfortable where we are in life, we decide to get up and move our seat from the will of God to the windows of life. So much so that now we're in an uncommitted position. His body was in the church, but his eyes were in the world. His body was where he needed to be, but his eyes was where he wanted to be. So now he's uncommitted. He's torn between the Bible and the blood. He's torn between the spirit and sex. He's torn between the church and the club. He's torn between the word and the world. He's in an uncommitted position trying to figure out where he wants to be. I'm sure his parents brought him to church, but he was thinking, I can't wait to turn 18, so I don't have to come here anymore. He was in an uncommitted position because he was uncomfortable in that place. 1 John 2:15 through 17 says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but of the world. And the world is passing away and the lust of it, but he who does the will of God abides forever. In other words, he was in the church physically, but looking out into the world, and that's where he wanted to be. But you cannot allow the allure of this world to move you from his will to the window. Okay, let me see if I can break it down this way. There's an advertising term called bait and switch. Bait and switch. Have you ever been home, chilling, minding your own business, you ain't bothering nobody, and then a McDonald's commercial comes on? You just ate. You're satiated, you're full. And then the McDonald's commercial comes on and they show that sesame seed bun. And then they zoom out and you see the 2 pieces of beef, the special sauce, lettuce, cheese. And then they sprinkle those golden fries out next to it. And they shake a little salt onto those fries. And then they show that Coke, the cup just sweating. It's just fizzing and bubbling. Then you get up and go to McDonald's. You say, let me get a number 1. You get your sandwich. It look like somebody bit off of it. Ain't no sesame seeds on your bun. They forgot your special sauce. Your fries look reheated. Your drink is all flat. Why? Because it's called bait and switch. I'll show you one thing, but I'll give you another. Is there anybody in this house over 21 that can testify? I fell for the advertisement, but I can tell you when you get that to order, you ain't going to get what you thought you was going to get. You ought to tell somebody right now, don't fall for the trick. I got a t-shirt, a keychain to prove it. He's lying to you. So now he's sitting in the church and he's captivated by the advertisement of the world. This is what trips me out. The whole time he's on this windowsill, don't no adult say nothing. Nobody didn't go over to him and say, hey, Eutychus, get off the windowsill. He's sitting on the windowsill and the congregation is unconcerned about his position. He was not attracted to where he attended because he was not attached to any adults. Nobody cared about Eutychus in this windowsill. Everybody saw him sitting there, but nobody told him to get off. The problem with us is we wait till she get pregnant to talk about it when we knew she was having sex. We wait until he flunked out of school to talk about it when we knew he couldn't read on his grade level. You wait until somebody on drugs to talk about it when you knew they had issues in your life. Is there anybody in this house that can testify? Tell me to get out the window. Don't wait for me to fall there and talk about me while I'm down. Put me down. Gossip about me. Spread rumors. Tell me to get my tail off the windowsill. They were unconcerned about his position. They were unaware of his plight. It's as if they didn't realize that if Buddy falls out of this window down 3 stories, he could die. We need some people in the house of God that are window closers. Everybody say window closers. What's a window closer? I can't tell you to get off the sill. You're going to still look out, but at least I can come close the window for you. At least I can remove you out of harm's way, young lady. You need to walk up to another young lady and tell her, look, I know he got a six-pack and some biceps, but let me close this window. It ain't everything it's scrapped up to be. I know she got a short skirt and some high heels, but let me close this window. You don't want to go that way. You ought to give God praise for the window closers in your life. I don't know how many windows you sat got in, but you didn't fall out because they close.